Hi, my name is Megan McLaren, and I wanted to describe my experience in the order of Bards, Ovates, and Druids Bardic Grade, which I just completed the coursework for on Tuesday. I began my Bardic journey in the spring of 2024, I believe. And so it has taken me some time to complete it. And I find it very interesting the timing that has unfolded in this whole thing. So, a little bit of background: I am a registered clinical counselor. I work in Squamish, BC. This is the unceded territory of the Squamish people. This land has been occupied and kept so dearly by the Squamish Nation and is still currently earth kept by them for many generations. Um, as a Euro Canadian, as a white person, I wanted, I don't, I struggle with land acknowledgements, to be honest, because I feel like it often ends up just being a person with white guilt declaring that our ancestors just took and then just moving on. So whenever I do a land acknowledgement, I like to include what I'm doing to contribute to Earthkeep. So one of the things I'm doing is keeping a garden. In the beginning of my Bardic training, I didn't have a flower garden, and now I do. I've considered it my sacred grove. So I have planted roses and dahlias and zinnias, cosmos, all sorts of lovely things. I've got lavender in the bushes outside my house as well. Um, and the other thing that I like to comment on doing is learning about one's own cultural heritage in an effort to not just claim Canadian identity simply because I was born here. So that is one of the things that I really cherish about my Bardic training. I entered that coursework at the same time that I was enrolled, or rather cast in a play. So what made me chuckle about it with the timing very initially was that I kind of already am living a bardic way. I'm a poet as well. I've been writing poetry since I'm little. And yeah, at that time I was cast as Sammy in the Wedding Singer the musical. It was my first time being on a stage. I've always been musically inclined. I've always been interested in acting. And so this was kind of like the first feature length piece that I had been in. So initially learning the Bardic grade was very wonderful and interesting to me. Learning the story of Taliesin, learning about um, folk tales and fables, so to speak. And I actually found that the Bardic training was really helpful initially in learning how to be confident on the stage. So I did the first few Gorsi back then. And then, with work and life and all of the things carrying on, I ended up falling off of the training for a little bit. And so I would do a Gorsi here, a Gorsi here or there, but hadn't really continued with momentum until more recently. In May of 2025, I was cast as the lead in Legally Blonde in my town, which was another wonderful, wonderful experience of being able to demonstrate um, the Bardic way, I guess. And I was reflecting even just this morning on what that play has done for me as a person. The beautiful healing possibilities of being an actor, telling stories, understanding character. And so while the coursework in the Bardic grade started to transform into more spiritual things, which I also deeply benefited from, I was definitely thinking a lot about what it means to be on the Druidic path, with the Bardic grade being so prevalent in my personal life. Like I said, I'm a registered clinical counselor. I am specializing in psychedelic assisted therapy. And so one of the reasons why I sought the order in the first place was, to refer back to my land acknowledgement, seeking ways to connect to the earth and spirituality and my medicine practice without stealing from lineages that aren't in my bloodline. So my cultural lineage is mostly Scottish. I have some Irish, I have some English, I have some Welsh. I have some Eastern Germanic apparently as well, according to my Ancestry.ca DNA swab. I do know that my grandfather on my dad's side, my father's father, is Scottish, was Scottish. He passed away when my dad was 13. And my dad's mother was from Manchester. So they came to Canada, I want to say in the 50s. Yeah. And so my dad was born here. My mom's side of the family was a mixture of European descent as well, some Scottish on that side too. So I've always felt very called and curious about UK Celtic traditions. So, coming into my work as a medicine practitioner, it felt like the right time to seek some more information about Celtic spirituality. And so, yeah, I started the Bardic Grade, like I said, back in 2024, and then proceeded on the journey, completing it more recently. So when the coursework started to become, interested in teaching the directions and ritual ceremony, this was perfectly timed with the way that my medicine practice was starting to unfold and become more abundant. I now open the directions for my ceremonies in the Druidic order, kind of recommended ways. I've created my altar space in this room. This is my virtual office. I have my rocks in the north. I've got feathers in the east. I have all of my smudging, my cauldron, fire matches, candles in the west, in the south rather, and in the west. As per the coursework, I have a plant. You can see a little bit of it there to represent the water. So I've really created my home environment to be inclusive of the coursework that I'd been learning in the Bardic Grade. In addition to, I was emailing a while ago, Jan, my mentor, about creating a sacred grove on my patio space. So like I said, I have my flowers out there, and I very mindfully tend to my garden on a regular basis. So more recently, I have taken a Celtic shamanism course as well. It's a year wheel. And so we started it in Mulk, and we do teachings and we do shamanic journeys. This again, kind of referring back to the beautiful timing that this has all unfolded just so fucking, so perfectly within the Bardic Grade. So I have a story to tell about my more recent shamanic training that will make sense in the Bardic Grade as well. So more recently, we were getting ready for the Lida Festival, and I had just made my Lorica, which I'm sure you folks at the Order will know about. It is a traveling altar. A few sessions ago in my shamanic training, we underwent a shamanic journey to call in which herbs and what our prayer phrase written on a piece of paper would be in our Lorca, and seeking a rock as well. So I'd found my rock. You have to wrap your Lorca in red fabric and in a braided piece of wool yarn, tied 3 times. So in my shamanic journey, my animal guide, who is a great horned owl, that was from a different shamanic journey that I discovered him. And in this journey, you employ your animal guide to help you seek out which herbs to include in your Lorica. So within my Lorica is some juniper and some goldenrod. We're never meant to speak the phrase or let anybody know what the phrase is. So my apologies. That will remain a sacred secret. And, then you put your rock, the herbs, the prayer into this red natural fabric. Mine is a polka dot cotton. And you fold it up, you tie it, and it becomes this sacred spiritual object. So I went to travel near Lita, and that meant traveling to Ontario on an airplane. And so I held my Lorca and was like, I'm bringing this. This is absolutely right to spend time with my family. I need a little bundle of protection sometimes, even though they're wonderful people. So I bring it to the airport, and they want to open it, which devastated me. I was very, it was an interesting experience because it made me realize just how connected I am to this lineage, to this pursuit of knowledge, to Celtic spirituality, and to this little Lorca bundle. So I very reluctantly did open it. There were three airport officials kind of at security, and I abide by security measures. I understand the necessity of screening passengers, but I knew it was a rock, which they did not, obviously. So in any case, I did open my Lorica, and then I was gutted with this fear that its magic had been exposed or ruined in some way. And so I was like messaging my shamanic journey course teacher, and she was asking me if I had a pendulum with me to kind of test whether or not I maybe need to bundle a whole new Lorica. And I didn't have one. So I was on the airplane, kind of fussing over, okay, I need to either make a pendulum, I need to get a pendulum. I was messaging my sister asking, can you please bring a pendulum? Because she was traveling from away as well to go to my dad's, and she didn't have one, couldn't stop. And so I decided when I arrived in Toronto to go and seek a pendulum before heading to my dad's place. So I found an occult store that appeared to be open as per Google, and I drove there to find that it was a flea market that was closed. It was a Friday. And so I'm stood there looking at this closed building and wondering what to do now. I'd already traveled in the opposite direction. I'm driving on the highway being like, do I need to get this pendulum? Like, that's silly. And then there's this other part of me that says, no, it doesn't matter if it's silly in the eyes of other people. Like, this is important to you. You should go find your pendulum. So in any case, I saw a security guard and asked, what's going on with this market? Like, I noticed that this store appears to be open on the Google, but it's not open. And he assured me that, it was not open until the next day, but that he would take me around the back to see if maybe some of the vendors were inside preparing for the flea market for the next day. And so I walked with him. He dropped me off at this kind of like front desk area where this other man named Sam was there. And I explained to him, I'm having a spiritual emergency. I need a pendulum. And he goes, oh, they ruined it. And just kind of understood where I was about that. And I said, well, I'm not sure. Like, I need the pendulum to discern this. So he brought me to the vendor's booth, closed. But then he said that there was another vendor who also sold pendulums, and that he was going to take me to her booth to see if perhaps she or someone nearby was able to help me. It was also closed, but right across the walkway from that booth was a man in a comic book store playing Fortnite. And he had a key to her booth. And so Sam had asked this man, if he was willing to help me open the booth so I could purchase this pendulum. I explained to him the reason why. He goes, oh, we're going to get you that pendulum. And I was like, oh my goodness, like, this is so bizarre. So anyway, I end up buying this smoky quartz pendulum, which I then Google. Smoky quartz is apparently a crystal that had been favored by ancient Druids. So it made me laugh out loud. But yeah, so I bought the pendulum. I drove home. I spent the evening with my dad and his wife. And later that night, I unbundled my Lorica and I rebundled it in the same ritualistic fashion as we did when I first made it. And I held my pendulum over top of it, and it indicated to me that it was a-okay. And so I was sighing of relief, very, very relieved. So as I was debriefing this with my Celtic shamanic teacher, one of the things that she pointed out, my sister pointed this out too, but that there was 3 men at the airport and 3 men in this flea market that helped me. And so the theme of our journey more recently for Letha was dismemberment. And so my teacher said it was quite fascinating to track the progress of the day wherein these 3 men dismembered me, and that these 3 men in the flea market had remembered me. And that this was like a necessary process to undergoing this shamanic training. And our next journey was going to be traveling to the underworld and to visit the first island of the giant ants, where they will dismember you and put you back together. And so she was like, your dismemberment's already begun. I thought, oh, wow, okay, like, this is fascinating. So sure enough, when I got back from that trip, we did our shamanic journey. I visited the island of the giant ants, and the imagery that I got was that I was bandaged at the joints, having been remembered by these men in the flea market, almost as if it was like a temporary fix. And so the ants removed the bandages and then used their saliva to bind me back together to remember me. So the reason why I tell this story in relation to my Bardic training is because as I was finishing the coursework, the last several Gwersi were referring to the eventual graduation into the Ovate stage. And instead of referring to it as a dismemberment, what the coursework was indicating was that in order to, again, grow and to evolve and to graduate, one has to opt for entering Caridwen's womb in the darkness. And how that, I think one of the lessons had said that it can look like depression, or it can be difficult and necessary work, inward introspection, but as well as, yeah, very much of an initiation. And that has been my experience undergoing this other shamanic course, as well as my bardic lifestyle as an actor in my town, and as well in my medicine practice. I feel like I've definitely been invited and initiated into this work. The same felt every time I go into a shamanic journey. I always believe that I'm not going to experience anything. And in the more recent shamanic journey, releasing doubt has been a main pursuit and a theme of mine. And so again, the Bardic grade has been so fruitfully helpful for me to, again, align with some of these cultural, spiritual, I call it capabilities, aptitudes, attunement, that I've been really working on throughout the last, call it 5 years of my life, even prior to undergoing the Bardic training with the order. So yeah, I've been very grateful. I've been not taking any of this for granted. I've been so appreciating and enjoying the audio coursework. My method has been listening to the coursework, following along, and highlighting, writing notes, copying and pasting specific paragraphs, sentiments into my electronic notebook. And really, yeah, again, just getting so much from it. Very initially, knowing that I was interested in going into the Ovate and eventually Druid grades, just looking at the way my life already is, I was chuckling yet again about, like, already kind of living the Bardic way rather. And somewhat from what I gather so far, of course, I can't wait to learn more about the Ovate grade, but my line of work is along the same kind of lines, if I can say that. The seer, the helper, the medicine person. And so I'm so excited to see how that can further contribute to my work, to my person, to myself, how I show up, and then eventually, hopefully, the Druid grade as well. So that is my essay. I hope this was comprehensive enough for my mentor, Jan. Thank you, Jan. To review and to recommend the Ovate grade for me to begin. I would be happy as a clam to let you know more as needed. But yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Alan.